The happy dance where he gallops around on his driver like he's riding a horse was recreated by a professional golfer at least one time in 2008 by Boo Weekley during the Ryder's Cup singles match. He did it after teeing off the first hole and went on to play quite well. When Happy's autographing the woman's chest, we see in the close-up he writes his last name right under his first name, all on the right side. But if you look closely in the very next shot, the word Gilmore has moved over to her left side, and for some reason he dotted the I twice. Chubbs missing his hand from a fight with an alligator makes for the second time a Carl Weathers character lost a limb or part of a limb from an attack by a deadly creature. The first was in Predator, where his arm gets severed by a laser. And it's no accident he's got a bunch of Lacoste clothing in his wardrobe. And this is the second movie Weathers co-starred in where the two main characters have their first date at a hockey rink while it's closed. The first being Rocky and Adrian. Happy's love interest has the initials VV, Virginia Venet.
Hey, who's the girl?
Hi, I'm Virginia Venet.
This is something Adam Sandler does in a few of his movies, actually. And in case you didn't realize that, yeah, you heard me right. Adam writes a lot of the films he stars in. And somewhere along the line, it became a pattern for him to write love interests with double V initials. But another reference to past Carl Weather characters is when Happy asked Chubbs why he didn't play a real sport, like football or something. So what you probably know is Weathers played Apollo Creed in the Rocky movies, but what you might not know is he was a professional football player for the Oakland Raiders before that, and his coach, John Madden himself, told him, "You're too sensitive." One of the consultants during production was a pro golfer named Mark Lai,
Hey, happy Mark Lai, welcome to the tour.
who, because the movie makes so much fun of the sport, couldn't let them get away with their original idea to have Happy win the PGA Masters tournament and get the classic green jacket. But they still needed a jacket for a lot of the plot progression, so they completely made up the Augusta National Tournament and made the jacket gold.
Gold jacket, green jacket, who gives a shit? Yeah.
By the way, Augusta National Golf Course is where the Masters tournament is held every year in Georgia, USA, but Happy Gilmore was filmed entirely in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. The distance from Vancouver to Augusta National is almost 3,000 miles, or about 4,800 kilometers. But to be a little bit more exact, we know the house that Grandma Gilmore hasn't been paying property tax or whatever on for the last decade or so is located at 1938 West 19th Avenue, Vancouver, British Columbia, V6J2P3, Canada. The distance from this address to Augusta National Golf Club is closer to 4,700 kilometers or 2,900 miles.
You're in my world now, Grandma.
A couple other pros helped make the movie, but most people associated with the PGA wanted nothing to do with Happy Gilmore for how crude it was. And after almost 30 years of being a cult classic, by the time Happy Gilmore 2 came out, public opinion had changed. We even see a bust of Happy next to some of the all-time greats like Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, and Tiger Woods. Now obviously this video is focusing on the original movie. I'm down to do one on Happy Gilmore 2 if you guys want to see it, let me know. I'm not a huge fan of how they took the most lazy plot device in movie history of introducing us to the offspring of characters who either died in the original or actors who passed away since that movie came out. But I digress. Bob Barker originally said no to making a cameo because the original plan was to use a stunt double for the fight sequence, and also Happy was supposed to win. But Bob insisted on doing his own stunts because he knew how to fight after decades as a student of Chuck Norris practicing Tang Soo Do. When Sandler heard that, he rewrote the scene to have Bob win, and that's when he committed to the cameo appearance. And the fight scene was apparently the first winner of the MTV Movie Awards for Best Fight.
Adam Sandler and Bob Barker.
And years later, they had a rematch on Comedy Central. Tiger Woods went pro the same year Happy Gilmore came out in 1996. And in 2015, he took a selfie with Shooter McGavin. I correct to say the character, not the actor, because the photo surfaced on Shooter's official X account. Richard Kiel, the guy who plays Mr. Larson, was in a car accident in 1992 and suffered severe head trauma. Happy Gilmore was his first movie back after that, but because of his injuries, his balance was affected and he used a cane to get around. And at one point he gets called Frankenstein.
I did it off Frankenstein's fat foot, remember?
Now, I don't need to go on about how this is a messed up reference to the crazy scientist instead of the monster itself, but Keel did play the Frankenstein monster sort of in the first season of the Monkees TV show, episode 18, called I Was a Teenage Monster, almost 30 years earlier. Also, at one point he wears a t-shirt that says "Guns don't kill people, I kill people." This could be a reference to when he played a James Bond character named Jaws.
His name's Jaws. He kills people.
And while I'm talking about Mr. Larson, I might as well mention when he has that confrontation with Shooter, he bends his golf club with the handle in his right hand and the head in his left. But in the very next shot, the handle's in his left hand and the head is in his right. And as Shooter scurries away all intimidated like, he asks him if he forgot his 9-iron, but you can tell by the shape on the head of this club, it's one of his woods.
Haven't you forgotten your 9-iron?
I mentioned how Adam Sandler is a writer for a lot of his films. Well, he came up with the basic concept of the plot for this one from his childhood friend Kyle McDonough, who played ice hockey and then would also regularly play golf with Adam in the summer. But Kyle could drive the ball significantly farther than the other guys, and they attributed it to his hockey prowess. And according to Reddit, at one point he joined the local golf league and he won that same year. To promote the movie coming out, Adam Sandler made a guest appearance on The Price is Right, episode 2498, which aired the day before the movie came out. During the Showcase Showdown, they played a clip of the fight scene, and the winner got to take up to 49 friends to Universal Studios for a private screening. But that's all according to IMDb. On TPIREpguide.com, The Price is Right guide, going back in the archives to February 1996, and checking that day gives us episode number 9854D. And makes no special mention about a special guest. Coincidentally, a completely unrelated man named Adam Sandler has been the director of The Price is Right since 2013, 6 years after Bob Barker stepped down as the host. And when Bob was retiring, Adam came back on the show to surprise him and read him a poem.
Happy Gilmore himself is here.
The PGA has a standard dress code, and Happy's default golfing attire absolutely does not meet the minimum standard of professional golfers during tournament rounds. Players in violation of the code are asked to go change to fall in compliance before teeing off, and if he did tee off dressed like this, he'd likely get disqualified immediately. Adam Sandler actually played 2 roles in the movie. You probably think he only played Happy, but he also did the voice of the laughing clown at the putt-putt course.
He's laughing.
Happy's homeless caddy's name is Otto. We learned this from looking at the credits, unless you've seen the deleted scene where his name is said.
Hey, Otto. Dude, buddy.
But we never got it in the final cut. And the first choice to play Otto was Chris Farley, and while he wanted to do it, he was contractually obligated to Black Sheep, which really sucks. Christopher McDonald said in a 2021 interview with NBC Sports that he modeled Shooter McGavin's behavior as a character after golfing legend Greg Norman, who is known for his aggressive style of play. Further still, he didn't even know why the guy's name was Shooter, so he made up the finger gun after the putt move.
Nobody told me anything, so I just started making putts and going shooya.
And for his final putt of the movie, he convinced the director to let him make the 32-foot attempt, saying he hates in golfing movies where they just cut to the ball going in the hole. So he was given 7 tries to make it, and he got it on the 5th attempt. And in the heat of the moment, he yelled out with all that raw emotion in character, and that's how the scene came together.
When I put that baby in there and I did choke on that baby, and I just did that whole shooter shimmy thing at the end. Amazing. That's the one they left in the movie.
Sandler originally wrote the role of the jackass heckler for Gilbert Gottfried, if you can imagine that. But when he learned that Sandler'd be fighting Bob Barker in the same scene, he thought he'd be overshadowed, and so he declined. But when he eventually realized how popular the jackass quotes were among fans, he admitted regret for turning down the role.
See, you learn about historical figures, too.
As the movie's golf consultant, Mark Lai had 2 ideas that deviated from the original script. The first was that Happy was supposed to hit multiple hole-in-ones throughout the film, and for the believable factor, he suggested that this only happened once.
I should just try to get the ball in one shot every time.
Good play.
His second idea was to add some sort of significant flaw to Happy's game. Originally, his only weakness was his out-of-control temper, but Lai said every pro golfer has some kind of weakness that they need to overcome to become the champion. This same basic principle holds true as far as storytelling and character development goes, so that's how the idea to have Happy be a horrible putter came from.
This is pathetic.
One of the biggest what ifs in video gaming history comes from the fact that Xbox almost put out a Happy Gilmore golfing game. Now, it was scrapped during development, but according to a 2021 article by Golf Digest, it would have allegedly included Abraham Lincoln and Chubbs' Gator as unlockable characters. And in the background at the Michelob Invitational, we see a sign promoting the Visa Everglades Open. It's on a tent in the background, so maybe this tent is just promoting future stops along the tour. But we also see Visa branding on some of the flags and caddies, so this might just be background product placement that we aren't supposed to think too much about. But Happy's caddy wears Michelob on his jersey, so what's with all the Visa stuff? And Otto is also seen drinking Budweiser from one of those double can frat party construction helmet things. But all Budweiser and Michelob products fall under the same parent company, Anheuser-Busch, so that checks out. During the opening scene on the ice, Happy does a slap shot that sends the puck through the protective glass, completely shattering it. The camera cuts to Happy really quick being angry, but then goes right back to the two coaches who were behind the glass when it broke. And if you look closely, there's a reflection because this particular shot was filmed before they broke the glass. So they had to zoom in to cut out the rest of the frame and make it less noticeable. When the jackass guy is driving the bug and he goes to run Happy over, you can see the grass has indentations from the tire tracks. So they must have done several takes to get this shot. What's curious is when they filmed this scene, because at the kickoff of the Tour Championship, you already see the VW bug lodged against the tower. But Jackass Guy doesn't plow Happy down on the fairway and crash until the final day of the championship, so obviously scenes were filmed out of sequence, and this quick shot was laced in there during editing by someone who thought nobody would notice. When Happy's about to drive away, completely dismissing Chubbs' opportunity, he pulls his car door shut using the top of the window, which is rolled down but sticking out just a little bit. Then as he hits the brakes and stops, we see the windows rolled down completely, and when he backs up to hear him out, we see sticks his head and shoulder out the window. But as it immediately cuts to a close-up, he's no longer hanging out the window, and it's rolled up just a little bit the way it was before. At the nursing home, when the air conditioner falls out of the window and lands on the Mista lady, we see it takes the wooden border along with it. But when they show the ground below with it on top of her, the wooden border is missing. After watching his first drive of the movie go through a window of a house down the street, Happy's got the golf club hung over his left shoulder, still held up after the swing. But in the very next shot, he's got it in his left hand, kind of leaning on it, just supporting a little bit of weight. Another thing I noticed is as we get the golf ball perspective flying over the trees, it looks like it's autumn. And in the stationary shot looking down the street, the leaves are much greener, and the movie takes place around late spring, early summer. When Happy sinks his final putt, one of the extras that rushes him from the crowd is this brown-haired girl with a turquoise shirt. She's one of the first to arrive. She literally has his back. But in the very next shot, she's standing in front of Mr. Larson, cheering, standing still. The shot of the leaderboard after a few holes of the Waterbury Open doesn't really make a whole lot of sense from what I can tell, and I'm no avid golfer by any means. Red numbers are under par, black numbers are over par, and of course you want to be as far under par as possible. So Caps is in the lead, and Lafferty, whose first name is Daniel by the way, and he's the guy that Happy tees off with, is in second, while Happy's down at the bottom of the board winning an award with Darwin. So take a look at Happy's score. He's 2 over, 1 over, 2 under, 1 over. But we can see the board when he's putting for the 18th hole and there's more information. Now with Happy at the top of the board, he's 1 over, 2 under, 1 over, 2 over. Or even more simply than that, it goes from 2-1-2-1 to 1-2-1-2. Your score cannot change after the fact in the game of golf. But the first hole is a par 5, and I did count 7 strokes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that was at least accurate at the start of the scene. Now, I've already mentioned a couple actor what-if could-have-been situations, but of course, there were a lot more. Bob Barker wasn't even the first choice for the celebrity partner game. He got the offer after Ed McMahon passed on it, saying the script was too crude. And Shooter McGavin could have been played by a ton of different guys. Kevin Costner turned it down to play in the more serious golf movie Tin Cup that came out that same year. Steve Guttenberg could have done it, but he was already working on It Takes Two with the Olsen twins. And other funny guys considered before McDonald ultimately landed the role were Tim Allen, Ted Danson, Daniel Stern, and Kelsey Grammer. And before Richard Kiel was cast as Mr. Larson, other hulking dudes considered were Lou Ferrigno, Mr. T, Hulk Hogan and Kevin Nash. To play Virginia, Brooke Shields was the first choice, but they decided she was too tall. Although Happy does mention her while he and Virginia are out on the ice.
I got the biggest crush on Brooke Shields.
Other big names in the running to play her were Helen Hunt, Amy Johansson, Janine Garofalo, Cameron Diaz, and Uma Thurman, among others. And the role of Grandma Gilmore could have gone to Betty White or Estelle Getty from The Golden Girls, Angela Lansbury, or Jean Stapleton, while James Avery, Bob Hoskins, and Danny Glover were all in consideration to play Chubbs. And besides People, Happy's sponsorship deal was originally supposed to come from KFC, but they declined. So then the director Dennis Dugan went and approached Subway because apparently they're his favorite restaurant. The sign outside the batting cages says $1.25 for 15 balls, so one can assume that if you only put in 4 quarters, you're not going to get anything. But let's say for the sake of argument that breaks down to 3 balls for every quarter. Well, we only see Happy throw 1 quarter in the machine, so he should only get 3 balls. But we see and hear a total of 6 shots fired before Chubbs unplugs the machine. And he must plug it back in almost as soon as he unplugged it off screen because we never see him replug the machine back in, but in the next shot, it is plugged back in. When Happy meets the other tour golfers at the cocktail reception, Shooter raises his glass towards his mouth to take a sip, but as he does, the camera angle cuts to show him from the opposite direction, and his arm is back down, showing him go for the same sip yet again. It's such a blatant double take of overlapping footage, I'm surprised editors didn't catch this. And while we're talking about Shooter's drinks, later in the movie at the club lounge, his martini has 2 olives in it. He finishes the drink, holds on to the skewer with the 2 olives, and orders another. The bartender then hands him a new martini with 2 more olives. So when he puts the original olive skewer in the new drink, he's now got 4 olives on 2 skewers. But when Happy moves away and the camera angle changes, Shooter now only has 1 olive on a single skewer in his glass. After Virginia scores a goal on their hockey date to win the bet and she goes to kiss him anyway, she's holding the hockey stick in her left hand. Then as we get a soft cut showing them from a farther away perspective, the hockey stick is completely gone. If you pay attention to the IRS agent's legs as he comes to a rest on the sidewalk after Happy throws him out the glass door, you can make out the obvious outline of thick knee pads. Unfortunately, committing such a serious assault against an IRS agent, which in the United States is considered a government employee in the Treasury Department, my quick research on what Happy's real-life consequences would be shows a simple assault could get you a year in jail with a fine, and a serious assault, such as throwing a guy out a window, could earn you up to 20 years in prison plus a fine. And around a half hour of the movie was cut to bring it from an R rating down to PG-13. And among this footage is Happy throwing another man out the window when he launches Ben Stiller's character from a much higher second-story window after learning how he's been treating his grandma. This fall could cause potentially paralyzing or fatal injuries, and in my opinion is a much more serious red flag about Happy's mental state. And by the way, Ben Stiller's character's name is Hal, and his last name starts with an L, but we only know this from his name tag. He's never called by name, and he's not even listed in the credits because Ben Stiller wanted to keep the role a surprise to his fans. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and suggest naming the character Hal-El as a Superman reference because he was born as Kal-El on Krypton. There's no readily available information of Adam Sandler emphatically stating he's a Superman fan, but in 2014 he was spotted in LA grabbing a coffee wearing a Superman shirt. So he at least likes the character enough to buy merch, making it totally plausible he'd name a minor side character after him too. At the AT&T Invitational, when Happy's temper rages wildly out of control yet again after he completely whiffs a swing while trying to drive, I counted 12 expletives, with one F-bomb actually making it past the sensor bleeps, and when the ball won't go in its home later in that game, he explodes with about 53 or 54 expletives. It all happens so fast it's difficult to count exactly, and I call BS on this scene anyway. There's just no amount of good ratings or excitement from golf fans that could save him from getting kicked off the tour after this. When we see a quick montage of all the giant checks he's collecting, you can notice on the 4 line, each one tells you what he placed. He got 21st at the Everglades Open, 18th at the Bell Atlantic Invitational, and 9th in the Minneapolis Wilson Classic. He also placed 26th in the Michelob Invitational, while Shooter got a solid first place at the AT&T Open and the Dallas Open, whereas Happy placed an abysmal 45th in Dallas. By these numbers alone, it doesn't seem possible for someone to rocket to the top of the leaderboards the way he does, especially when he eventually gets suspended for a month for punching Bob Barker. But regardless, adding up the prize money on these checks, he's still making excellent bank playing golf, more than enough to make sufficient payments on his grandma's house, even if Shooter's earning around $250,000 per game in comparison. And that's 20 minutes about Happy Gilmore. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if I missed anything cool. Like and subscribe, please, and I'll see you again as soon as I can with more content. Aloha.